It's 33 years of commentary. Overwhelmingly. I've been so fortunate to be commentating with my friends, and that really helps as well because, of course, you know, you see in the Mosconi Cup where we're at the moment, pressure can cause all kinds of mistakes. And so if you're feeling relaxed, it's a great help.
You're not often on this side of the camera, so...
Very rarely, yeah, absolutely. I think because you'd need widescreen. But it's more about statistics. It's about emotion. It's about, you know, cue actions. It's about past career records, all that kind of stuff. Daunting, so difficult to do. Now seems completely natural. It's just another day. So I went up to meet this gentleman, and he was full of stories, and he got all the memorabilia, the photographs of the Olympic Stadium in Berlin, picture of the Great Britain team with Hitler in the background.
You know, some of the catchphrases you come out with here and there are fantastic.
Yeah. The two most important times to say things that are impactful.
This episode is brought to you by Integrity Cues, BSN's trusted source of premium pool cues and accessories. Shop the entire inventory online now at integritycues.com.
Welcome to this episode of Talkin English. This one's very near and dear to my heart. I grew up watching Snooker, listening to the commentary all the way through. So, Phil Yates,
Pleasure.
Thank you so much for being on today. We are here at the Mosconi Cup. And as everybody knows, I'm a bit of an amateur commentator myself, and really enjoy that kind of life behind the mic. So this is a big moment for me, Phil, to get to talk to you and people to kind of find out a little bit more about you.
Yeah.
You're not often on this side of the camera, so...
Very rarely, yeah, absolutely. I think because you'd need widescreen.
Well, I'm not the smallest of chaps either. Luckily, though, the camera workers, you know, I've managed to capture us on at least one of three cameras, so we're good.
Absolutely.
So first off, tell me, how did you get into the world of sports commentary? Did it always start with billiards?
Yes, it did with snooker. So basically, I was 26 years of age, 1988.
Just a boy.
Just a boy. I played a lot of snooker to a reasonable amateur level. I've made a few centuries and, you know, won a few matches, did well in regional tournaments, but nowhere near good enough to be a professional. But in the summer of 88, I caddied for a friend of mine at the Open Golf Championship, and I wrote a piece about it for the local newspaper. And it was pretty much of a success. And then an uncle of mine knew this guy who played for Great Britain soccer in the Olympic Games in 1936 in Berlin. And it was just going up to the Seoul Olympics. So I went up to meet this gentleman, and he was full of stories, and he got all the memorabilia, the photographs of the Olympic Stadium in Berlin, picture of the Great Britain team with Hitler in the background. And I thought, you know, this is a wonderful story. And I asked him if I could borrow his memorabilia to give to the newspaper to take photographs. He said, yes, very kindly. Wrote a piece. My second ever piece, by the way, and it got a 2-page spread in the Birmingham Post, which is, as you probably know, the biggest regional paper at the time.
Yeah.
And it made me think, well, I've written 2 articles, you know, they've both done well. I could do this. And it's always something I wanted to do. So, a personal friend of mine who I played snooker with, a guy called Les Adams, who was a middle of amateur champion, fine player, lovely guy. He knew Clive Everton.
All right.
And Clive was
snooker commentator.
Snooker commentator who's sadly in the last few months passed away. And he needed a junior. So I went up to the interview, and one thing led to another, and we got working together, and that's how it all started, September 1988.
Wow. So that's a kind of like, we've talked about it before. You not only have to be good, I think in some ways you have to be lucky with the timing.
I was extraordinarily lucky, and I'm always very appreciative of that fact. And I don't try and hide from the fact that, you know, that old saying about it's not, you know, so, you know, in this case, I like to think I know a lot, but I also was very fortunate with the timing of it all. Yeah. And Clive gave me a job, and within 2.5 years, I was commentating. I became snooker correspondent of the Times, which was a really big deal. I was only the 3rd one in the history of the newspaper. Just things went from there. I've written books subsequently. Snooker's where it started. Got into pool. I've done a little bit of baseball, which I absolutely love, and I've also worked extensively in golf.
That's incredible. And I think, many of the fans will know that your voice is iconic with the game of, with sport, billiards as a whole. Who was kind of your role model? Or did you ever watch anyone growing up like the Whispering Ted Lowe as a favourite for mine?
Well, funnily enough, it was Clive, because he was so informative and he was such a wordsmith as well. Wasn't just a great commentator, he was a great writer, and that's why I really gravitated to.
Did you know that 95% of the viewers of this channel are not subscribed yet? This stat blows my mind every time I look at it. We're constantly looking for feedback. We're reviewing the comments. We're doing everything that we can to interview the people that you want us to be interviewing and making sure that the content evolves every single time. So if you like what you're seeing, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And if you want to support beyond that, consider becoming a member. You get to have extended access to all the interviews. You have minimal edits, and you get to see all the behind the scenes footage that we don't cram into each and every episode. So if you want to see everything that we're doing, then go ahead and consider becoming a channel member. Anyways, let's get back into the episode.
And so actually when I went to the interview, it was one of those rare occasions where I completed an interview and then asked the guy who'd been interviewing me for his autograph. Yeah, I did, yeah. I thought I wouldn't get the job, so while I was there, I'd get him to sign a book for me. But we became firm friends, and until he's, sad death just a couple of months ago, we were in daily contact, and he was a great friend, but also a great mentor.
Yeah. Well, it's important that we kind of learn, from people all around. And I think in the modern age, people can just have so much free content to consume now that if they were thinking about going into this field, what kind of advice would you give that?
Well, I think from my standpoint, knowledge is king. Not only knowledge, research. Now, my co-commentator here, Michael McMullen, is extraordinary. He has got so much up there, but he's also prepared to work and delve and look at websites and, find other information, because that's the role we're in, providing information and as well as providing words and painting the picture. At this particular tournament, we're very fortunate, as we are going around the World 9 Ball Tour throughout the year, to have Colt Bliss, Scott Foster, and Jeremy Jones sitting next to us, because when it comes to reading a rack and knowing the game inside out, no better.
I think that's a really good point to make. And, I don't think a lot of people realize how much effort goes into, preparing for something like this and doing the research and background of the players. Like I mentioned, I've been fortunate enough to kind of be behind the scenes and seeing and taking copious amounts of notes. How often do you kind of refer to them? And do the things you say, are they the phrasing? Some of the phrases are kind of, again, we've come to know and love. How much of that comes very naturally and instinctively versus pre-prepared notes?
It's the old joke, I like to practice my ad-libs. When it comes to words, I think that is off the cuff. But when it comes to facts, obviously, I've thought beforehand about what to say and when to say it. There was an instance in a match I've just done where I knew that at the start I needed to say that in 20 previous team matches in the Mosconi Cup, it was 10-10. And in terms of racks, it was also exactly equal at 83-83. Now, had I put that fact in after rack 3, it wouldn't have been relevant, so I needed to put that in the start. But you can't overly put statistics into things and make it all about that. So, and I think early in my career, I was a little bit guilty of that, actually. But it's more about statistics. It's about emotion. It's about, cue actions. It's about past career records, all that kind of stuff. It's like playing pool itself. It's like playing snooker itself. It's like playing golf. You can't do it without a great amount of practice.
Yeah.
And what seems natural to me now, when I first started, seemed, so daunting, so difficult to do. Now seems completely natural. It's just another day.
Yeah, and it would be remiss of me not to mention my good friend Robin Cripps, who does a fantastic impression.
yeah, I know he does. Yeah, he's better than me. Yeah,
I know it's so that. Well, of course, famously, it's absolutely spot on, and I think you give the fans something extra in that regard.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is, one of the principles I try and put into my commentary, particularly on snooker, because obviously it's a much lengthier game. And so you've got much more time to elaborate and talk about stuff. I try and talk about things that they wouldn't have access to. So if I've spoken to the players backstage before, the previous day, whatever, but also about stuff that is not necessarily appertaining to that match, that is not immediately in front of them. So it's sort of painting a broader picture, if you like, of what's going on with the two players involved.
No, that's incredible. I'm such a big fan of everything that goes on, and I think you've got a really good balance in the commentary booth right now of what you mentioned. Obviously, I think Jerry brings a little bit of both. I think he's slightly more technical and perhaps Carlin.
Yes.
But having that balance, what do you think have been like the most iconic pairings for commentary to yourself and maybe in history for you?
Yeah, well, I mean, in terms of pool, I've got only a small amount of experience, but I've got a great relationship with Jim White, initially through snooker and then obviously through pool. So it was always great to work with him. I was at the Crucible in 1980 when he got to the quarterfinals there. People don't realise what a great snooker player he was. He actually got to the quarterfinals at the Crucible twice.
Canadian, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So Jim, for me, really helped in the early days when I was involved in pool. But I think the current two mainstays, Carl and Jeremy, would be the two I find I'm most at ease with now, purely and simply because, they're like tall shoes, They make you feel so comfortable. One thing I will say, and I was talking about this to Michael the other day, actually. We were having a meal somewhere and I was giving this to him to see what he thought. It's 33 years of commentary, and I've been so fortunate, and I'm not just saying this, I've been so fortunate to commentate with the vast majority of people I've commentated with, certainly on a regular basis. A, they've been terrific, and B, I've gone with them like a house on fire when we've not been behind the microphone.
Yeah, that counts.
Yeah, the odd time where it's not been the case, but overwhelmingly, I've been so fortunate to be commentating with my friends, and that really helps as well because, of course, you see in the Mosconi Cup where we're at the moment, pressure can cause all kinds of mistakes. And so if you're feeling relaxed, it's a great help.
You make a good point, and we talk about it with players all the time, but, are they compatible? Can they play Scotch doubles together? And I think just as equally in the commentary booth, if you have that compatibility and you have that personal relationship off camera as well, off the microphone, you guys, it's going to be so much more kind of synonymous, or would you say cohesive for fans at home to kind of understand. You find yourself getting into a great rhythm over each other.
And also as well, when COVID occurred, we did the World Snooker Championship, and we had to commentate from two different booths, obviously because we didn't want to be, catching the illness off co-commentator if they come up with it. So I was really worried about the fact we're going to be talking over each other all the time. But it was sort of sixth sense. We didn't. Because we knew when the other guy was going to speak. It was sort of,
the timing.
Yeah, in an innate thought process. He'll speak now, so I'm not going to. And he was in a different room down the corridor or wherever, and yet we didn't really talk over each other that much at all.
Yeah, I think you make a good point about Jerry too. It's this kind of soothing, dulcet kind of Texas tone.
Yes.
I was fortunate enough to do a little piece with them at the APA and the Texas Open as well. And he made me feel so at ease.
Yes.
That I just knew, if he wanted to come to me, he would kind of lead me in. And then vice versa, you kind of knew when to speak.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he's so non-confrontational, Jeremy. He never criticises too much.
No.
Occasionally, there's a sort of, semi-criticism in there. Whereas I'm a little bit more blunt at times, certainly when it comes to snooker. But he's such a nice guy. And of course, Carl's completely different. He's very confrontational and prepared to be, quite out there, as it were. And I think that's one of the reasons why he was so successful in the Mosconi Cup. This kind of environment was made for him because he's such an extrovert.
I couldn't agree more. I have a separate interview lined up with Carl. We've been friends over many years. But he just seems to just turn up and he's so nonchalant.
Yeah.
He's kind of like that character, just kind of, he's either late on time, but he can just snap into gear
Yes.
so quickly from like being a very personable to very professional.
Yeah, and whatever he does, you know, you can never fall out with him. I mean, he's never given me any reason to fall out with him, but he's just such an absolute fellow. But I've known his partner, Lynette Horsburgh, for many a year. She was a fine female snooker player. And, you know, I can see the way the two of them gel. But yeah, he's a real good guy, Carl.
Well, that's fantastic. I just want to say, you know, thanks so much for taking the time out to come in and chat to us. I'll be talking to Michael, like I say, hopefully Jeremy, if you guys find some extra time. Let me know.
Well, I admire all of my commentary colleagues greatly. But let me tell you something about Michael McMullen. In all my broadcasting career, I've never met anyone with his depth of knowledge. He is simply extraordinary. And it's not just on pool. It's on snooker. It's on football, soccer. It's golf. He's got a mind that you cannot believe. I'll give you one example. Yeah. We were at the Crucible some years ago, and the evening session was winding down. The story for the day had already been written, and basically we were just there to make sure, you know, the thing taught what else to do. And so we had a trivia contest, and I just assumed when it came to golf I was going to blow him out of the water. Absolutely not. So then we started doing snooker, and people were asking very sort of, well, I thought were simple questions. So Michael said, let's up the ante. Tell you what, I'll give you every score and winner for every match in any World Championship in the 90s. So another commentary colleague of mine who's a really good friend, David Hendon from Eurosport, he said, okay, 1997 World Championship. So we got the book there. And he gave us every single who beat who and by what score in the World Championship that year. You can't even credit it. And then...
Without looking at notes.
Without looking at any notes. And then he ran through the top 16 in the rankings at the end of that season, in order, 1 to 16. You can't comprehend the knowledge that man's got. And he's also got a really good broadcasting ability as well. So the two combined make him, for me, you know, one of the very best.
I think, you know, that's the kind of thing that stands out for me with especially both of you guys is the vocabulary, you know, and the extensive range of, like you mentioned, wordsmithing. You know, some of the catchphrases you come out with here and there are fantastic.
Yeah. Well, the two most important times to say things that are impactful, your intro into the rag,
yeah,
and definitely your outro. And so I'm always thinking about the outro, you know, last few balls. Sometimes something comes to me and it's like sort of a light bulb moment. You're always thinking about it. And what I do then is I try and formulate the sentence in my head as if I was tapping into a computer. You know, I'm writing it in my head, just a one sentence line.
It's pre-prepared. So you're preparing that as you go.
I don't know what's going to happen, but, you know, maybe 2 or 3 balls before the end of the rack, I'll think, this is what I need to say. How best can I say it?
Do you do some rehearsals? Because it's, again, something before the live broadcast, is it? Do you do a rehearsal?
No. The only rehearsal we do is, you know, we test the microphones to make sure they're working okay. And then it's just straight into it, really, yeah. But I must say, from a pool perspective, obviously snooker was my bedrock profession. But I've been so warmly embraced by people in pool. I can't thank them enough. I absolutely love coming to the big events. And somebody asked me, actually, earlier on today, what do I prefer, snooker or pool? And I genuinely can tell you, I love them both.
Yeah. I mean, you're very unique to work in both environments. I was talking with Marcel, and he actually is a very good pool player.
Yes.
Obviously grew up in the world of snooker.
Yeah.
And he said it's quite a nice change of pace.
Yes.
To do a snooker environment versus what we see as a very rowdy Mosconi Cup environment.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, which one do you prefer? Are you on the fence or somewhere down the middle?
I love the atmosphere here. Mm-hmm. I think the only time it's, for me, crossed the line was when Catchy had the 8 ball late yesterday, and they continued to shout while he was down on the shot. Because, you know, enjoy yourself, but for that few seconds when a player's addressing the ball, I think people should be quiet. But, you know, I'm not blaming the American fans, because when we go to Ali Panley next year, it'll be the same problem with the European fans.
Yeah.
You know, but just a little bit of respect when they're down on the shot. That's all I'm saying. Some of the comments have been, you know, very, very funny. I mean, you know,
absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm exactly in line with you. I mean, again, we come from a very disciplined background. You know,
yes.
So you've been a crucible, you could European.
Yes.
But for here, it's kind of like that exhibition. And again, I don't want to talk too much about Marcel, I had to say, but he said he lets things go here more.
Yeah,
Actually, anywhere else.
Yeah.
And I think you kind of need the crowd engagement. They are the sixth man. They are super important to USA.
Definitely. Yeah, absolutely.
Are you more enamored with what we've seen in Florida versus Vegas as a venue?
I think it's about level for me. I mean, I've come to Florida a lot on holiday anyway, so I know the area really, really well. I know Vegas well. The one that has changed, the European contingent, I think, in terms of its percentage size, is the smallest it's ever been for an American Mosconi Cup. But apart from that, I think the venue here is absolutely fantastic. So I can be in no way critical.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to we'll finish off with what's your most memorable moment as a commentator, and perhaps something that you're most embarrassing. Have you ever made a mistake that's kind of, you brought
well, I mean, you're probably right at tape talking about all the mistakes.
I don't think I remember you making a big mistake.
We were at the end of a very lengthy day at the Championship League, which is quite a low-profile event, but it's an event I absolutely love. Matchroom promotes it. It's in two versions, actually. Snooker, this is. It's an invitation event, and it's a ranking event. And sometimes the days can be quite lengthy. End of a very big day, and I was wrapping up. There's no presenter there. It's streamed on the internet. So I was wrapping it up, and I said, well, there it is. Thanks, everyone, from Leicester. Another great day here at the Championship League. Goodbye-bye.
Oh, no.
And if you ever listen to David Hendon's podcast, Snooker, which is brilliant, that's how he always closes it out. Goodbye-bye. He thought it was hilarious. So that's my biggest mistake in terms of best moments. Well, there are so many of them. I think when you commentate on a 147, that's something else. One of my personal highlights was commentating on Stephen Hendry in a world ranking event final when he made a 147 in the final. Now that is a rarity. So I put that up there. And also when Nigel Bond won his lone world ranking title after an inning of snooker and then deciding frame against John Higgins. And a match earlier this year, actually, when John Higgins cleared the table from nowhere to beat Mark Allen in the World Championship.
Had no right to clear up.
No right to clear up whatsoever. All of those three, great. In terms of the best match I've ever seen, I wasn't actually working on it, but it was the best match I've ever seen. World Championship, when Mark Williams beat John Higgins in the final. It was the greatest world final ever. Now, it didn't have the drama quite of the 85 final, Dennis Taylor and Steve Davis. But in terms of drama and standard combined, it was simply out of this world. And how Williams made the break to win it in the end, I'll never know. That was the career highlight for me. I was there writing for Snooker Scene and for a couple of newspapers. So I think that would be the one.
Well, I'm going to put you on the spot here. Can you give us an outro in the moment?
At the moment, it's Europe 6, USA 5. Is it going to go hill?
Oh,
we'll find out.
Yes.
Goodbye-bye.